Hola, mujeres. Welcome back to another episode. If you're here because you read the title, chances are you're moving through some kind of transition, maybe emotionally, professionally, or personally. So today, we're not just talking about that shift, we're talking about what it means to honor it. And we're excited because we're joined by Camila Gomez Wills, the founder of Mareia, and someone who has dedicated her work to helping people reconnect with themselves. Together, we'll explore what it means to slow down, reflect, and let clarity meet you where you are. So take a breath, get comfy, y vamos a hablar. Welcome to our podcast, Camila.
Gracias.
Okay, so Camila, we have a lot of questions for you, and we are super excited to get educated about this topic and learn together with our audience about the Mareia Method and so much more, all about transition and being stuck as women, especially as Latina women.
Yeah.
So before we get started with the topic, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, tu pasión, and share your personal story about transition and feeling stuck?
Of course. Hola todas. I'm just so excited for this conversation, and even hearing the introduction of what we're going to talk about is just, yes, here we go. So hi everyone. My name is Camila. I'm originally Colombian. I am an integral coach, and I founded Mareia to help smart, self-aware Latinas stop second guessing themselves and start choosing their next chapter with clarity and self-trust. I went through a very similar process. So in coaching, we say we coach who we used to be, and definitely went through that kind of blossoming and blooming as well. I lived and worked in Colombia and then moved to the US and followed kind of that traditional path of achievement and checking the boxes and going through life very much making my family proud and doing all the things that I was supposed to do. And then that life stopped working for me in many different ways. It kind of all fell apart. I was feeling disconnected and trying to push myself, and discovered integral coaching. I was fortunate enough to do a fellowship that included integral coaching, and that was an awakening for me. And it really allowed me to explore other ways of living and to listen to myself and choose myself. And knowing that Latinas very often don't have access to coaching, that is what really prompted me to build Mareia around supporting Latinas in a culturally grounded way, like understanding where we're coming from, knowing that every story is different and every background is a little bit different. And yeah, I'm not talking about abandoning who we are or leaving that aside. It's more so of how do we bring that together into our lives in a different way.
Hey, Camila, I love that. Already my takeaway, I loved how you said we coach how we used to be. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so interesting because it's like so personal to you, like you're out here being a cheerleader to your clients. And it's like, because you're like, I've been there. So it's like even more of that connection.
Yeah.
So we're all eager to know, like, what can you explain to us? What is the Mareia method? Like, how has it helped women that you have worked with? So
yeah. So what I do is I bring together many different kind of approaches and methods to support women that are moving through a period of change or transition, right? So in life, there's many seasons. Transitions can be, as we were saying in the intro, personal, professional, etc. And it's very important to me to clarify that the coaching I do isn't oriented to one topic. It's not, we're going to work on your CV, or we're going to work on your relationship with your partner, or we're going to do new mom coaching or something like that. It is really oriented to you as a person changing from one way of being into a different way of being. So the Mareia Method is based on three main elements. The first one is integral coaching approach. And what that means is that we work with your mind and your thoughts, your body, and your emotions. So it has to do with your heart and how you're feeling, kind of your intuition and what you really know is there, and the thoughts you have or the stories you have around that. The second part is a deep understanding of that, like cultural expectations that as Latinas we have around what a good life means. And I put that in quotations. What does success mean? What does responsibility mean? What does belonging mean? And then the last part is like an extremely personal understanding of your own values, right? Everyone has a different sense of like who they are and what matters to them. So it is oriented towards what is important to you. I don't have a recipe or a formula for what your dream, ideal, successful life is going to look like. We will reach that working on it together. And really, the idea is to help women that have been overthinking something for years or months, just being there like, I'm spinning, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do, etc. It helps kind of break that pattern and realize that we most often do know what we want and do know what it is that we want to do, and start building that next chapter that contributes to the life that they want to live, not what they told they should want, again, quotations, or that they should be doing with their time. It's more so, okay, what is that life and routine and like structure that you have been envisioning for yourself? And how do we start taking steps towards that? Part of what I love about it is that it is different every single time. It's not something that we do and we know exactly what the destination is going to be. It's something that through a very deep intake process and through the conversations that flow from that, we build with each of the clients.
That is great. Because we were super interested to understand like what exactly it meant. Because it was kind of like, oh, Mareia, like we looked at your profile, like your Instagram profile, and you have like a lot of information, which is great. But there wasn't necessarily like information about like, okay, what are the steps that, like maybe, Camila takes to show women what that
this is good feedback. I'm going to send myself a note. I'm like, okay, content needs to include steps.
Oh yeah. So because I was talking to Rosie about that, I was just like, okay, this is great, but like I don't really understand exactly what that entails, like what those steps are of included within the method. So yeah, that would be great to know, maybe letting other women know like, okay, what are the things that Camila does to make sure that women understand what's included within the method. But one question that I do have before we go on to our next set of questions is, did you have an example, like without obviously like providing like personal information, but do you have an example of like a success story of someone, like a woman that you have helped through a process like that with the method, and how has that changed their life? Like, I don't know, like can you provide some sort of example of like what happened and then how you went through that and now where they are?
Yeah, I'm smiling now because I feel so kind of proud, I guess is the first word that comes to mind of my clients. So it's kind of a heartwarming moment of, oh, yes. So yeah, a couple of examples that come to mind, and I'll give very different kind of sorts of journeys to give people a little bit of a flavor. The first one is for listeners that are in the US, under this administration, many changes have taken place. And a couple of clients this year, the question has been a lot around of like, is the life I want to live in the US, right? What is up with this American dream that we were sold and that appears to be crumbling in front of our eyes? And how do we go about an understanding of it, right? It's not a personal decision that we made, right? How we look, what our names are, where we grew up to be. I see you both nodding here. So yes, this resonates, right? Like these are our real issues. These are our real problems that we're facing right now. And making decisions that are oriented both in what we can do and also an understanding of like the systems that we're facing right now, right? So whether we vote or not vote, or we can or aren't allowed to vote, that is a conversation for another day. But I mean more so of like, what are the things that are like big picture within my realm of choice and what are things that I can make decisions around. So the work, particularly with one of them, was, okay, the visa situation is going on. Should we start looking for alternatives elsewhere? Should you keep one kind of leg here and start kind of continuing to grow and build your community here and kind of your nest and roots here? So more so working around those sort of things and understanding that it doesn't have to be one or the other. I think we also tend to be like very black and white of like, okay, I'm going to throw it all out the window and leave and just say goodbye to my life here and never come back again. Or I'm going to just put all my energy into being here, and just finding those gray areas of taking each day one at a time and doing what we can to, yes, continue. I'm a big proponent of like community, and community is what's going to keep us like strong and motivated, and continue to do that, not just cut yourself off. And also know that maybe right now we do need to have options open elsewhere where there's less vulnerability of getting imminently kicked out, to say it very politically correct fashion. So that's one sort of example, right, of what does home mean and what does home look like, I'd say was a theme for some of the clients this year. And then very, very different perspective, thinking about a client that she had built this XYZ career and she's experimented with all these other things, right? Of, oh, maybe I'll be a massage therapist. Maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll explore this. Maybe I'll get certified in this. And just kind of honing in on, okay, all these experiments that you've done over the past 10, 15 years, but you've still kept this job as an anchor. Is this time to kind of go all in one of these experiments? Do you stay in your job? Do you leave? So I think there's the theme, I guess the common denominator is most of the times, knowingly or not, and I think this is important to highlight, it's not necessarily clients already know, right? Like this is the exact issue that I want to work on. But at the end of the day, there tends to be kind of this question, right? Do I stay or do I go? Do I leave? Do I take a leap? Do I stay where I am? And kind of finding the best path forward within those sort of questions. And then this client, she ended up taking a leave from work and using that as some time to kind of settle and recharge batteries, and then, work on it together on what would that kind of future next step look like that doesn't feel so much like inertia. I think a lot of times clients come in just feeling like they're living this life in autopilot, and like just things happen all the time. And it's like, yeah, okay, but we have choice. We have choice within what is happening around us.
I love that. Like I'm over here like, oh, the word clarity all over it. Like you're just
and I get so excited. You could also just like gesture to me like, okay, pause.
Yeah. Well, I'm still working on like, it's very hard for me to interrupt people. So I will just be back here taking my notes.
We can have like our secret code. For those of us that are watching this video recording, I'm doing gestures with my hands of like doing different things to raise your hand.
Oh my goodness. I just want to add, like, there's this big trend. So my algorithm has became on Instagram. I was born in New York, but my parents are from Dominican Republic, and my husband's from Dominican Republic, born and raised there. So my algorithm, as soon as I clicked like on someone that said, I no longer living in New York or the United States is the American dream for me, like I want to go back to my roots. And it's like now my feed is bombarded with all these people that I didn't even know existed, that they're leaving everything in the US and going back to the Dominican Republic. And it's just like, that is really something that I think, like there's even a millennials, like, and then I don't know, it's just because I'm a millennial, but it's like millennials, like back in the day, you would hear people take that step once they were like close to retirement age or at retirement age. And now it's like, they're like, no, like, I just want to wake up and be by the beach or be in mi campito tomando mi café. con las gallinas, and it's just like now it's like our mindset has shifted of like I want a soft life versus just a grinding life, and it's like once you were saying that, I'm like that's the overthinking me, and especially for my husband because he 2 years ago he was like. We're ready to move out of this country. Like he's like, yo soy un hombre caribeño, yo nací en el calor, yo no estoy para este frío. And then it's like we have the choice. But I loved how you said that you could do both, that you don't have to just say, I'm gonna say just leave it all behind. And then it's like, so I don't know, you can add a little bit of that of when you said on how you could do both, because I think that would like help us a little bit understand more when you said you could do both. You're thinking like, I want to have the life in my home country or my roots, but then I also want to have a little bit of here, like selfishly speaking, I still have my kids. That would be a big transition, but I don't know. Jana, maybe you could add a little bit there too, because you have kids and I know that's there in the future for you, but it's like, once you have something on your mind, like how can you stop having something just stop bombarding you and overthinking it and just saying like, okay, but there's a process I can follow. I'll stop because I can talk way too much.
Jenna, do you want to add anything? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So on my end, like so I'm a planner. So in my mind, like I already planned that we're going to stick to, we're going to stay here. We're going to do what we have to do here. Cause like our children, they were born here. This is what they know. And obviously like, I want them to know our roots and I will continue to take them back to, cause I was born in the Dominican Republic, born and raised. So was my husband. So we do go back and forth like every time we can. So we bring our kids and they spend time there and we will continue to do that. But like my plan is that we do want to retire in the DR. Oh, it's like my husband and I. So we will do that in the future. But I don't want to like actually like take my kids and do that to them. Like it will be up to them. Like you want to stay here when you're older and adults, like you can stay here and then you can come visit, to the DR. We can come back and visit you. But like it's something that we have planned for the future. It's not something that I have like thought about just yet. But like you never know. Like I never say never, right? Like anything can happen. But that's like my current plan at the moment. But I never say like, no, I will never do that. It's like, you never know, right? Like it's the plan now, but who knows in the future in a few years. So, but it's good that you say that because you can never say like, I'm just going to do this, but when you have the choice, right? Like when you have options, like I do like that there's never like, that one thing, right? Like you don't have to just think about that because there's always options, I guess, right?
Yeah. I guess one important clarification before the internet goes wild with what I've said, which it might still be like this. There is privilege in choice, and I recognize that. And so I said, like, yes, there are choices. Yes, there are choices. With what we are seeing with our communities right now in California, South Carolina, Florida, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, very often choice is robbed of us. And that is a problem, right? So I recognize that is part of the environment or the system or the picture that we're operating under. And that is part of what makes it a crisis, right? That is part of what I think makes it so challenging is that we are robbed of the opportunity to make choices for ourselves, for our families, for our livelihood, so on and so forth. So I want to be very cognizant of that I'm not kind of living in this la la land of, oh, yes, we have decisions to make. And like, depending on the individual circumstances, that opportunity has been taken away from us. And that is wrong. And we can talk more about that in this conversation or in a different one. But I by no means I'm trying to imply that like everyone has this like opportunity and paths in front of them.
That is true. To your point, 100%, not everyone has the ability to do so as well. That is true.
Yes. And what can we find within those cases that aren't like the extreme case of ICE took my father, but more so of in our day-to-day life that we do have decision moments in front of us, while recognizing that there's situations where the decisions have already been made for us.
100%. So I love that you actually addressed that. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. I'm not, as I said, like I'm not living in the clouds here. I'm trying not to.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we do have other questions. So we do want to ask those, because I know
we could
those
go back
because they're also still important, and we do want our Latina audience to know a little bit more about those things. So there is one question here that we do want to know about. So I guess, like, what inspired you to explore the topic of like feeling stuck, especially among high achieving Latinas? Because to be honest, so for example, like Rosie and I are, I can say this, like we are high achieving Latinas. Like we have goals, and we're constantly battling and I don't know if you've heard, there's some of the episodes that we have that we've talked about the fact that like we are always trying to, I guess, like do things that like coming from our parents, right? Like making sure that like, okay, we want to prove that like we do things for them, right? Like we want to make sure that we're making them proud and all the things, like, all about this, right? Like our generation, especially like as Latinas, and for us, because we are the eldest Latinas too, like within our families, we have siblings.
Same.
And we're the oldest. Yes. Right?
Oh, we're feeling pain right now.
So I'm sure you know this, right? Like we're always carrying the load of like everything, and we're always trying to accomplish like more of everything, and we're always trying to prove something, and we're always like trying to do more and more. So like, what can you explain what inspired you to explore more about that, and especially on that end for us?
Totally. Yes. First, my own story, right?
I figured.
Yes. So that is a huge part of how this puzzle piece came together. And also because it kept showing up everywhere, right? With friends that I grew up with, or people that I met here in university and stuff, of women who are like very, very self-aware and very, very smart, and recognize, okay, something needs to change, but I don't want to make the wrong choice. That is a huge like component of it, right? Like I want to make the perfect choice, A+ 5-star choice. And often that choice does not exist, right? What we can do is make a choice and go with it and see what happens. And on the other part, I think recognizing that change and transition are always going to be a part of our lives, right? Whether it's parents getting older, us getting older, kids arriving to our lives, jobs changing, managers changing, do we move to a different house, a different state, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I really wanted to create a space where women could be honest about what that transition was bringing, both the challenges, which there might be some, but also the gifts, right? I think we tend to kind of over focus on like, oh, this is so hard. And like, there might be a lot of gifts with it as well. And really listening without judgment. So I think for me, that's a big part of what I try to bring to the table, is an exploration with curiosity and with questions that, yes, they're probing and might seem confrontational, but just really exploring, to your earlier point on like being ambitious or stuff, like, okay, ambitious, but ambitious towards what? Like, what is actually driving these goals or this dream or this vision, right? Of, as you said, like, okay, bigger house, more beautiful clothes, whatever, right? Like better meals for my children, right? Like there's always this desire or this striving thing. And I think trying to break that apart into something that, okay, what is it that we're moving towards, and what is it that you're trying to find motivation towards? Someone else in an earlier conversation this week was asking me about like accountability towards their goals. And I said, okay, well, let's take 45 steps back and talk about what those actual goals are, right? Is this actually a goal that is important to you? Is this a goal that's going to get you closer to what you want? It's not about holding things for someone else necessarily. I mean, we talked before we clicked record on this, right? Of choosing things for ourselves and letting go of that story that we grew up with of, oh, that's selfish, or you need to think about others. Yes, of course, we're social beings, and also we need to allow us to be who we want to be.
I love that. I'm sure all these Latinas are like, when you said selfish and think about others because that's how we're wired. Like,
Yeah.
some more than others. Like, I mean, our community knows that at the beginning when I met Jana, she would be like, What is self-care? Even when I joined corporate, my boss was like, what did you do this weekend? And I would tell her everything I did. She's like, so what did you do? What did you do for yourself? And I'm like, what do you mean?
Mm.
So, and I love how you said ambitious towards what? Like I felt like that was powerful. I was like, yeah, like that we do get to put what does the definition of ambitious. Also at the big earlier, you said what's important to, to your client. Like that is really what you focus on. And so with that, like, is it, again, I'm passionate about the clarity. Like, when I went on your page, I was like, oh my gosh, like she is so much about clarity. Like I'm going through the process. Like everything you're saying, it's like I've been having to go to that on what are my values, what are my morals, and doing more what I want to do versus what my parents think is correct and what they want me to do. And it's like, well, we worked so hard for you to have this certain lifestyle, but then now I'm like, but you also built something that I could also have a certain lifestyle that I know you didn't build it for me, but it's what's making sense. And it's like when you're saying, I'm like, what are you ambitious for and what's important to you?
Yeah.
So with that, it's like it takes me about like when you're talking about like clarity and then you have that clarity, like then how do you start putting it into practice? Like so you can stop that spinning of overthinking.
Yeah, I'm a very big believer and proponent that oftentimes, even though like in conversation with our friends or with our partner, we can say like, oh, I don't know what I want to do. Like that's a very common script that we have for ourselves. We very often do know. That's like my big, like, like big headline secret is like, we actually do know what we want. And it's about.
But I have a question, Camila, though.
Yes, go for it.
So, but do you think that we do know, but we don't want to share with people because we may feel like we're gonna be judged, or like what is it that you think it's like inhibiting people from sharing what it is that they want to do?
Yeah, I think that's a great kind of caveat here, and I will get to that, and I will just get to that even sooner. I think number one, there's a lack of practice that we aren't used to sharing what we want. And starting small is very important. So an example that I like to use a lot with clients is like, what you wore today was your choice, right? Unless you're working like in a uniformed profession or something like that. I know I have a brother who's a flight attendant. He very definitely does not choose what he wears. But in general, like, okay, what you wore today, what you eat for breakfast, like these are all things that you chose to do and that you are like acting on, right? So I think starting to recognize those micro moments of knowing what you want and acting on them is good practice for starting to do that in the bigger picture. Second, to what you mentioned on like, is it lack of like wanting to share? I think we're often our harshest critic. Most of the time, nobody cares, right? Like, unless it's something that will like maybe impact your partner or your family or something like that. But like what your preferences are, most of the times nobody's paying attention, right? I think sometimes like we have like this deep fear or belief of like, oh, but someone's gonna think that this was stupid, or oh, this was gonna like sound bad, or like this was lame or whatever. Nobody cares. They're all living their life. Everyone's trying the best they can, and they're just in their own swim lane doing the best they can. And I think we're often very paralyzed by that like fear of what others might think, that like external judgment, and more often the judgment comes from us, from within. And I think part of the work of unpacking is giving ourselves like the opportunity to try it out, even through the fear, And I think this is very important, right? I think very often it's like, I'm not a big proponent of like, no pain, no gain, or whatever. It's not necessarily about that, but I do think that regardless of the fears that we might have, starting to experiment with low stakes settings is really important to start having the comfort to experiment in higher stakes settings. So the coaching process is uncomfortable because the whole point is we're breaking patterns and we're establishing new patterns. And as long as that comfort is in that learning zone, right? We talk about kind of the comfort zone, learning zone, panic zone. Like we're not trying to get into the panic zone, but we're also not trying to stay in the life that isn't working for you, right? If we wanted to just stay as we are, we'd just all stay as we are and that's it and live our lives that way. But if we're trying to live differently, we are going to need to move in that direction. And coaching is exactly that. Coaching supports the process where you go from thinking about something to acting and to taking an action that's going to move you closer to that. And I think that is the missing piece, right? Sometimes, like I'll give the example of like therapy or like mindset work or these kind of more like new age things. Like it's about the mind, right? Like, oh, this is the pattern I have. And we think about the pattern and then we journal on the pattern. Okay, but what is going to replace that pattern? And we need to move from just self-awareness to actual movement. And that is what I'm very like adamantly convinced that is a missing step often. So going back to your example of not feeling comfortable sharing, my invitation would be is, okay, how can we start sharing something smaller, lower stakes that starts giving you kind of that practice and that muscle, so to speak, of it's okay to say what you want and to start verbalizing it. And in other cases, maybe you don't even have to verbalize it. It's for yourself. You go ahead and do what you want, and you don't have to send it out to the world.
Did you have, as a coach, I guess, and maybe I don't know if you can share or not, do you have any like steps of how you get people to actually go from like thinking about those things and wanting to do those things to actually doing those things? Like actually actions.
Yeah.
Taking the step to do those things.
Yeah, I love this question because it allows me to talk about something that I joke about in the coaching practice, and there's homework. Like we're back to school and there's homework, and it's not about, oh, we're going to meet every 2 weeks and chat about how things went. No, there's actual homework, and the coaching journey or the process happens through that homework, right? And the exercises can vary so much, right? Because everyone's kind of needs and journey and everything varies a lot. But I think there's a few common denominators I can think of right now, kind of on the fly. One of them has to do with like pausing. I think being in a rush and being crammed with 45 things to do in the next 6 hours is not very conducive to taking aligned action and making choices for ourselves and understanding our values and things like that. So a lot of it has to do with like taking a step back, pausing for a moment and reflecting on kind of that decision tree, right? Like that fork on the road, what it is that we want to do next. Others can be as kind of random or weird as like you're going to set up a space in your home and you're going to build that, again, to what I was saying earlier, just using the same example of the clients of like, okay, what does home mean to you? Create a little space in your home that is like your place in your house that is just for you, where you light a candle and have like this sensory experience, and you can go and like retreat there in your house in moments of overwhelm. It can also have to do with, for example, when people say like, oh, I don't know people in the town or city that I live in or in my neighborhood, I don't have a community. Okay, in the next week, choose 2 events that you're going to attend that and go and see humans. That's something that I say a lot, like jokingly, but also it's true. Like go get out of your house and see some humans is an important part of this. So yeah, it really, really varies, but we try to, during the session, the word I use is like, I invite a client to something, and then they can say, you can always decline. Right? That's part of the process. You can always say like, oh, you know what? There is 0 chance of me doing that. Okay, then let's think of something else that will move us towards that North Star that we're moving towards, that it feels achievable, that you would actually do this week. And sometimes I try them before I invite my clients to. So examples of that, I went to a class. Oh my gosh, I'm not even going to remember the name of the practice now. It was like Qigong. It wasn't Tai Chi, but Qigong. And I was like, okay, I want to try this out before I bring it to a client. I will go experiment with this and see kind of what this could look like, or what other things have I done. A singing class, like a group singing class. It was all women. It was awesome. Highly recommend. Just kind of experimenting, right? Like what is out there that I can suggest to a client that is going through XYZ thing. Body image wise, that's another one of like, just put on the bathing suit. Just like, how can we get to a place where you can put on this bathing suit on your vacation? And again, like the homework isn't going to be put on the bathing suit. It's the building blocks towards that.
I love that. It goes back to what you said, is nobody cares. Everyone's out there living your life, doing more what you want to do. And it's like all these experiments.
Yeah.
It's like, you're like, put on the bathing suit, go to the class and set up the space. I love it.
Yeah.
For Jana, did you want to add anything to that since you're asking?
Oh, no, I was just interested because humans, I mean, Camila, humans, it's hard to get humans to do things, right? Like even if you go to a coach, right? And you talk to them and you want to do certain things, like, and you do homework and you assign them homework, it's really difficult to have someone to, especially if they don't want to do it, like their goal is to do it, like, right? Like, I guess like at the end of the day, you want that client to wear the bathing suit, right? But if they don't feel comfortable, and that's not what they, you know what I mean? Like, that's not what they're, I don't know, like, it's just not something they're comfortable with because they don't want people to see their body on a bathing suit or whatever. Like, it's going to be really difficult to get to that point. So whatever the steps. So I just wanted to know, like, how do you get those people to actually get to that point?
Yeah.
And what are those successful stories? Because it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, I would like to respond to that because I think that raises a really important point here. And it's, coaching is a process initiated by the client, right? And we have an initial conversation of, are you like willing to take the leap and try this out? And if you're not, then maybe this is not the right time. And that's okay too. Like, I'm not here to like convince or preach or just kind of share the beautiful possibilities of coaching, because I'm here as a mirror. That's another expression we use in integral coaching. Like, the coach is a mirror. I'm just here reflecting back and opening different possibilities, right? The coaching program that I completed, their tagline was alive in possibility. And I really like that, right? I'm here offering you different possibilities and ways of looking at things. But the actual work is like the clients,
right? Like, you have to be able to want to do the work.
And sometimes that happens, right? Of like, we'll talk something through. Here's my 3 invitations for this session. And then next time arrives, I didn't do any of them. Okay, let's explore what came up. And I think a really interesting one is, I didn't have time. Okay.
Classic.
Right. But we make time for what is important for us, right? So what is it that this actually reflects? And I'm not here to take it personally. I don't personally care, but I do think it's really important. And part of the coaching process is exploring, okay, then what are you making time for? And what is more important to you than this. Because at the end of the day, we end up doing what we believe is important, whether that's from like a very old story that we're telling ourselves or whatnot. But I think kind of breaking those automatic responses is a really important part of it. And then the other part, I know you said success stories, but initially with Rosy, we had talked about vulnerability too. I had a client this year who we didn't finish the process. She started. We did the intake, which is a very in-depth conversation. I then put on the table like the coaching program, which is how we call it, like the general direction of travel and what we're going to be moving towards, and the goals and this and that. And we had maybe like 5 or 6 sessions. And we had a very kind of, I would say, frank, genuine conversation of maybe this isn't the right time to continue with this for her. And that's okay. And that's an option too. And it doesn't mean we failed at coaching, and it doesn't mean we can never try again. It just means that right now, in this moment, that was not the right support for her. And that's okay too.
Yeah. That brings me to, we really need to pause when you said take a step back and reflect. Because when we're on the survival mode and just one thing after another and just cramming everything in, like that's when we say we don't have time, because it's like we don't have that I'm saying clarity, I might be wrong, but it's like every time, as I said from the beginning, like I feel like everything with your coaching has to do around that clarity. Like it's just building that clarity. And the more I hear you, it's like, oh my gosh, every exercise, it's like we think it's building even more of that clarity, because you're like, I thought this is what I wanted. Is this what I want? No, this is what I want. But then through all those exercises that you're giving, you're like, I don't know, me over here thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that really does lead you to saying, yeah, I'm going to keep doing this because it's giving me the clarity of this is making me feel good. This is what I've been wanting to do. So,
yeah,
I
did
do
this
have
post last week. Oh, go ahead.
I do have one more question. It's just because it's interesting. Have you had anyone that has like, I reached out to you because they're like, okay, I'm having issues with this because like I want to do this, but then you have helped them go through the coaching program, and then it's not necessarily what they wanted to do, and then they ended up doing something else. Like it's not what they actually wanted. Like, oh, this is what I want to do, but then you help them, and it's just like, oh, that is not exactly what
I think people sometimes start the process thinking that the core issue is X, and then we realize kind of together, or when I hear them, like from that external standpoint, right? Going back to the mirror example, I present a different understanding of that issue, right? So, oh, I thought my issue was my divorce.
Yeah.
And then through the intake process and all the questions and hearing and seeing their body language and things, and I start saying, okay, but what I'm seeing here is maybe these other like stories that you're telling yourself, or these other patterns and things. So maybe the divorce is just, one part of the puzzle, but at the core of the puzzle, maybe there's your own sense of freedom and what being a free woman means. I'm making this up. I'm not by any means like saying that this is, but just in general, I think that does tend to happen, that we show up with one situation and
it's not,
there's other things going around that. And I would say that's my job and my training to kind of pull those threads and start kind of like those dolls, where you open a doll and there's another doll, and then, okay, what is the ultimate doll that we're talking about here? And oftentimes it has to do with our identity and what our sense of self is and how we've built that sense of self. But yeah, Rosy, to what you were saying on the clarity piece, I did this reel this week with the dog, and it's like we sometimes want like clarity to find on our lap, right? Just like I have arrived to what it is, and I just really don't think that there's no amount of thinking and of using our head like to that will get us to that place, right? It's not like, oh, I need one more sign from the universe or this or that. For me, at least from where I'm coming from into my practice, it's very much like clarity is something that you practice and you sense, is this feeling good to me? Is like checking, is this something that feels like what I wanted it to bring to the table? Or is this something that feels kind of icky and awkward and not at all aligned? And that trust is something that we build and practice over time.
I love that. I love how you said, I want the universe or, one more. And it's like, because I've been there. Like, I remember going to, I know one of your talking points were, on decision making. And for me, I went to the therapist and I'm like, I have this decision to make, but it's like, I pray to God, like, mándame una señal, like, and then she's like, you have all these signals in front of you, but I'm like, but I don't feel like I have the clarity. And then it's like, but then like the fear, and when you said the identity, and it's like, what is it I really want? Because I am one of the people that I've always grown up to be like, I don't know what I want to be. Like, I could see Jana, I'm like, Jana, you're a badass at designing, or a friend, you're a badass at designing clothes, or you're a badass in technology, like you gotta have your own business and this and that, and me over here, I'm like, I don't know what I want. I'm like, I don't know what my gift is. And then it's like, a little bit with putting in some work, I'm like, well, I think one of my gifts is that, is like, empowering people and letting them know what their gifts are to turn into money. But that's another thing. But I just like the way that you said on is putting into practice and doing little things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna I'm gonna be like a little bit more intimate. That is there one practice that you think that's easy for us? Like, I know you said earlier, like pausing, and that's when you're in the taking action. But in the process of clarity, is there something that you can share? Because it's like, I don't want you to share everything. We want people.
Yeah, but I think a very simple approach, if we think about it, like words I've already used here around like pausing and practicing, right? So when we feel like that sense of urgency or that feel like that, I don't want to use the word stress because we use that approach too much, but like a pressure, right? Or an urgency or a pressure, like, oh, I need to make a decision on this right now. Or like, I'm feeling so rushed by life. Like, okay, what would it look like to take a deep breath? Ideally, maybe 3 or 4, but let's start with 1 deep breath and really just settle in. And that's usually how I start my coaching sessions, right? Because people are like living their lives in their hectic nature and just like, and just people kind of just settle in so differently. So I think taking that moment to breathe, step out of the urgency, and then start sensing, right? Like what is our body telling us right now? And something I say a lot is like, our body knows way before our mind does, right? Like, we already know like what feels tight for me. Like, it could be the shoulder, the neck, what feels like open right now. And then what would be like one small step that you could do to honor yourself right now? That could be setting a boundary, saying no to something, asking a question, exploring an idea. It's those like small, honest actions that are going to build that self-trust muscle and move you away from acting from fear or from that panic zone. So yeah, we can go a lot more like into the science of this, of like regulating your nervous system and yada yada. But I think at the end of the day, just like stop, take a breath, try to sense what your body is telling you, and take one step.
Love that. That's been something that I've been talking to John a lot about, like our acupuncture. Yeah. She's like, listen to your body. She's like, your body speaks to you. It's smart.
I love that. Like, I agree.
And I'm like, when with me getting sick, ear infection and a cold, and she's like, your body's speaking to you. Like, you need to take action. I'm like, but it's like, what you're telling me that it's giving me these symptoms on my body is not doing anything back to me. Like, it's been great. And she's like, yeah, but your body is still speaking to you that you're ready to let go. And I'm like, and I'm just like mind blown. I'm like, oh my goodness. So I feel like this could be another episode on listening to your body
Yeah.
and regulating your nervous system, because I've been fascinated of that. Like I never, and we've had, you know, we had another guest on holistic wellness, you know, the chronic pain, and she spoke about that. Like, you know, like when you're gonna take a test and like you get all this tension, and it's like I've been, yeah. As a Latina, I never
I'm
grew up
noticing
listening.
myself. I'm just
Yeah,
trying to.
as a Latina, I never grew up listening to like
Yeah.
listen to your body. It was always like, oh, something hurts, like brush it off, or like, you know, I don't think that's something of our cultural that I think we need more of that in our Latina cultural to like
Yeah,
really,
totally.
but okay. Jana, you can add it on there so that we could almost wrap it up. I'm looking at the time like, oh my goodness, like
Time flies when you're having fun.
A lot of talking points.
We can talk forever. We can talk forever, Camila. This is a great topic. But we don't want to make it super, super long for the audience because this is great and you have educated us a lot. But we do have one last question for you. Well, before we ask you where people can contact you, but if you could leave our audience with one last advice about navigating transition in life and how to move forward from it, what would it be? Like about everything that we talked about, like what would be that one thing that you want the audience to know about transition and being able to move from that?
Yeah, I think that the main one is that you don't need to be 100% sure in order to begin, in order to start. I think we often want that certainty, and we're like raised with that sense of like, you need to like have things like right and get it right and not make mistakes. And I think just giving ourselves the opportunity to be honest with ourselves and to try it out. And you are allowed to try something different out. And yeah, that would be my invitation, is just to, if your life just feels like it's not fitting anymore, you're allowed to outgrow that and to step into a different life and build that life that does actually feel like you.
Especially to our Latina listeners, right?
100%. Everything I'm saying is especially for our Latina listeners. Yes.
Right? Like, are you listening, guys? Esto es para ustedes. Like,
Sí. Yeah, definitely.
And then la última pregunta es, how can our listeners stay connected with you? And how can they learn more about your Mareia Method and, you know, your website and everything you do so they can reach out to you?
Definitely. Well, as you can tell, I feel very passionately about integral coaching and really happy to have this conversation with listeners that resonated with this. We'll link the website and the Instagram handle on the show notes, but the website is mareia.life. It's a play on words between the tide, that's always changing, la marea, ella, ours. So like our tide is changing. I'll work on my Instagram to make it clearer on what it is that the method is and what it is that we do. But yeah, you're more than welcome to, if you're feeling like you're in a moment of change or transition and are looking for some support, you're welcome to book a free 20-minute discovery call. We'll explore what the coaching journey is. And yeah, you'll find the link of the website in the show notes, and we can take it from there.
Thank you so much, Camila. I'm so happy you said that you do free discovery calls, because I'm like, I'm over here thinking like our closing. So thank you so much for that. And everyone that's listening, you need to go and schedule a discovery call. Like Camila's gonna be there unpacking everything that you have. Like I'm over here listening to Camila, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's like a therapist that calls herself a coach, but she's over here unpacking all these things that you think that you want, and you're like, she's like, you know, as they say, peeling back the onion. I like how you said the la muñequitas, those dolls. I remember my mom having those. Like they start small and they get the little one. Because I am fascinated with like the way you explained in your method. It's like it's all about pushing the people to their best potential and believing in themselves and not caring about what others think. Like those were like my main takeaways. So mujeres listening, thank the Camila, reach out, follow her Instagram. So click on the link at the show notes here to follow her on Instagram. Schedule your discovery call, because you never know, like, how you're gonna click with Camila. Like, I'm sure you clicked on something while you were listening to her today, because I know I have a lot of notes here with stars. And I'm like, oh, this,
I
oh,
did see
that.
you taking notes, and I was kind of nervous. Like, I wonder what she's
No,
writing.
it's all good stuff. It's all good stuff. Because I'm always like, what am I gonna say at the end? But it's also like stuff for me, because
Yeah.
Jana's always like, you're always over here taking all these notes. I'm like, well, it's all so good. So I hope
Yeah.
that's something else our listeners, like I always say, go back and listen to this episode, and with a notepad, because mujeres, as we tell you, like, this is not just another episode for you to listen, but we always want you to take action. So if there's something that you're gonna do after listening to us, thank you for taking the time to listening to us, is start. It's like Camila said, she's inviting you to start saying more of what you want, or just do it for yourself. Like, take those small actions. So thank you so much for reaching out to us. Thank you, Camila. And again, go and follow Camila's page, because this is just the beginning of you learning of a new way of coaching, like integral Mareia. Like, now that you explained it, I have seen the waves in the beach. I'm like, oh, like, that's cute. She must just love the beach and the waves. Now I know why.
There you go. Yeah.
So, thank you y hasta la próxima. Ciao.
Ciao todas.